Okay, everybody. So on our website is the instruction document and the PDF of the code. Now, you don't have to use that PDF of the code. If you want to actually type in the code, that is a good thing. I wouldn't not say that's a good thing. It will certainly help you remember it. But I realize you guys are in a time crunch. I realize you have other subjects. I'm not so arrogant as to think that my subject is the only one that matters to you. Maybe I should think that. I don't know, maybe some other teachers think that, but nonetheless, I'm aware that you guys have other things that you should be working on. And so doing a big typing exercise is not my goal. But I'm going to open that instruction document. I'm going to open that PDF of just the code to get them ready for us working on the next section of this tutorial today. So there's the PDF of the code. Here's the instruction document. So as of yesterday, we started this tutorial and we did this. We downloaded the project, so that's done. We saw in the instruction document how to do that, okay? We opened the project in NetBeans, we did that, okay? We opened the 40S tutorial, we did that, and we took a look at it and read through it, okay? It says it was already completed, so we didn't have to do anything. We should and did look through the code. We did and should read the comments. And then we opened this thing called UI View, okay? And let me just show you in NetBeans what I'm talking about. So we started this CS40S tutorial, that's done. We opened UI View. It opened at first to the designer, which is great. We learned as well, which you learned in the 30S course, how to switch from the designer back to the source code. So now you can look at the source code, okay? So what you're going to do for a lot of this tutorial is you're not going to necessarily modify the code right away, but you will be adding in comments, a comment called explanation. And my expectation is that you'll also be reading that comment if you want to learn this material, okay? So that would be where we'd start here with this one. And we did that yesterday. We talked about how this would be put into NetBeans, this idea of a designer versus the code separating logic from design, which is a concept, a sort of a methodology of building and programming. And you know what? To kind of strengthen that, to make a better argument why you shouldn't just copy paste and not bother reading my comments, I'm going to open up the U of M computer science courses. Now, I could pick any university. I know I went to U of M, so I definitely got a bias there. But, you know, like the idea, what I wanted to do, whoops, this is not the right page. That's also not the right page. 1 second, is I want to show you guys how this potentially could show up if you study computer science beyond high school. Yes, it'd be great if I also opened U of W or maybe Brandon or Red River College or whatever sort of post-secondary you might be toying around the idea of. But at least with this one, I knew where I was going, right? And I'm actually going to open up Computer Science 2000, which are second-year courses. And I'm going to open up, for example, some of these courses you would take in a second of 3-year degree. So this way you'd be halfway through a computer science degree taking this course. And could some of the stuff that we're doing in this tutorial kind of show up in those courses? Now, obviously, you're going to go in more detail in a university course than in my high school course, but that's the idea here. So I'm going to, for example, open up this one called Programming Practices. And I just clicked on it, and hopefully, and I didn't pre-test this, but it's opening up the description of what this course is, right? At a university, one you'd be paying for, right? And you can look through that and get a feel for it, okay? And I'm going to back up and try another course. 2000 level courses, object orientation. Okay, and here you can see some of the stuff that we covered in our previous unit, like abstract classes. That's good, but also what I've been just talking about, design patterns, designing and how you build things in a larger sense, right? This would show up in those courses. So what I would hope is for you students doing this tutorial would go, hey, say 2 years from now, hey, I remember in high school we did a little bit of this. And the person sitting beside you in that class would go, really? We didn't do this. And that would give you guys that advantage. That's my hope. Anyways. All right. So let's get back to the tutorial. So having finished that explanation comment for that file called UI view, we would now go down to the next instruction. It says, after completing this comment in your project, after examining the code and reading all the comments, well, we didn't really do that. So let's just take a quick look through more of the comments. So the UI controller, this is the controller for the view. This is already made for us, but we're probably going to be adding code into it. Controller equals new UI controller. That's obviously a constructor method where it's constructing the controller and linking it to this view, right? The view is the design that we have here. So it's somehow linking this design to another class that controls the logic, okay? Then you can see for each button that's clicked on here and each thing that's interacted with by the user, it just jumps over to the controller and runs some kind of method that does the actual action. So this class, which is built in the designer, doesn't really have a lot of logic in it because it shifts the logic over to this controller class. Okay, so that's really all I needed to read about in this particular UI view. So now it says we should open the class called meme.java. All right, so let's get to that one next. I'm going to go to the project we already have, which has all the files in it we already have, and I'm going to open this one called meme.java. That's the one I'm going to open. Double click it, and it's opened up. Now, this is what you're generally going to find with this tutorial. I've tried to put in there places where you can find add comment here, right? So that's where you know you're going to be inserting a comment for your work on this tutorial. If when I go to mark this, see that that's still there, then I know you didn't do it, right? And so I can't give you full marks there. Now, right now, that comment area is at the top, but there could be sections throughout the code where that takes place, which kind of forces you to read through the code. In this one, it isn't, right? It says here, the code is already completed. You do not need to modify it, but you must add this explanation comment. And here is the comment. So if you can, what I would do is go to the PDF, scroll down to the section here for the meme. So it's a little bit of you kind of navigating these PDFs and grabbing that explanation comment, copying it, excuse me, and pasting it. Whoops, I pasted it twice. You might remember from yesterday, my advice then would be to clean up the code if it pastes in a little bit badly by selecting it and going Alt-Shift-F. Let me just review how I did that. It's under the Help Keyboard Shortcuts card. So this is available on any version of NetBeans. And it's right here in sort of the center section of the first page. Format a selection. And the fact that it says the word selection there is important. You have to select the code first and then press Alt-Shift-F to do that. It'll just save you so much time to clean up your code. It won't always do it perfectly. There'll be times you still have to go in and actually manually fix the code, but it did quite a bit there to clean up the code. All right, so let's read this explanation. It says, here's our meme object. It represents one of two types of memes. A saved image file off the internet or just the URL, the web link to that image, okay? So let me just sort of point that out. If you were on the internet and you were at Google searching for an image for some kind of meme, some popular meme, okay? I don't know, these are all weird. And by the way, that was dangerous for me to just Google search a meme without anyways. So let's say it was this meme right here. I could save this image. That would be one way I could put the meme into my database, but I could also just copy the address to this image. So leave it wherever it is on the internet. So anytime I want to look at that image, I could just go back to this web address. I could do either of those. So this program is going to give you the option to do either of those. It will remember, it will store the path to that. whether that's the path to where it's saved on your hard drive or whether it's the path to where it's saved on the internet. In something called a collection, which is this thing called a dynamic link list. So that's what this unit's collections is about. So we'll get into that as the tutorial moves forward. But obviously this is now starting down that path. You'll also see it uses the word implements, which is a throwback to our previous unit, that it's going to implement a interface. In other words, it's going to follow the rules of something called serializable. Serializable is something that you don't have to write. It's imported, and it allows this meme to be saved to a file, which is really good because that's something that we didn't have time to cover in the 40S course. And I would like to point out something about the 40S course. I realize that this course is one of the last courses, that you could possibly take in computer science here in high school for free. So I realized that the content of this course, you know, like we studied recursion, we studied advanced classes, and now this tutorial is in collections, which is one of my units in this 40S course, compacted down into a tutorial. But like all my computer science courses, I realize that students might want to go beyond what I teach in the course. So like any course, the 40S course has an extras unit, extra content that you could study. However, it's tough to kind of lay out everything that you could study as computer science would go on into, you know, community college or university or post-secondary or even a career in computer science and programming and software development. So what I've done is I've created links to a number of potential things that you could study in computer science beyond high school, okay? For those of you who might be taking the 40S and still staying here at Sturgeon Heights and then maybe going on to studying something like IB computer science or what will be AP computer science, I might be covering these in that extra content as well. But I wanted to go beyond to give you guys more stuff if you wanted to learn it. And one of the things that the reason I brought this up is saving and opening data from files is an entire topic unto itself, right? That this meme database could actually save a permanent file. Now, how would that apply to something you're working on? Maybe you're working on a really cool game and you want to have like a high score table, and then you want that high score table to be saved so that the next time the program launches, those high scores are still saved from before. Well, that would require you to learn a little bit about permanent storage. So yeah, you could read through my extra content section about permanent storage, but what I've done here as well is I've tacked it on a little bit to this tutorial, okay? So anyways, that was there. So that's this permanent storage stuff, okay? It uses, as you can see if you go down, two static constants. Again, is a throwback to our previous unit. The meme stores the path. The meme stores which type. Is it from a file? Is it from the internet? That's what that means. And then it starts to look at this linked list of keywords. So it's a bunch of strings that are collected together. We'll get into more detail as to what a linked list is later in the tutorial, but essentially it's a fancy version of an array, okay? Then there's a constructor, how you construct a meme. You guys know what that is. There's a method called add, where you add the keywords. There's a method toString. Aha, that's another version of something we studied in our previous unit. Turning a meme into a string. What should that look like if I'm going to display the meme as a string of text? So that takes care of this meme class, okay? Reading forward next, we would now go and look at this thing called the dialogues class. And this is probably about all we'll have time for today, is to work on this thing called dialogues. Once again, all we really need to add is the explanation comment. So let's do that. Let's now open up dialogues. Okay. You can see as well written in here, it says this class is already coded, already completed. All you're responsible for is this section called explanation. The rest of the code is all done. Now, I'm going to go get that. So I'm going to go back to the PDF of just the code, and I have to scroll through meme and get to dialogues. Here it is. Here's dialogues. But I need this comment called explanation right here. So I'm going to grab this comment. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to take it in here. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to select it. I'm going to automatically format it. Alt-Shift-F. Notice I went a lot quicker there because now this is the third time we've done this. And so it should be getting a little more intuitive to how this goes about doing this. Okay, so let's read what's going on here. It says this class is actually a version of one we actually have on our course help page. So if you were to go to the 40S help page, a page that's always been available for you here in this course, you would have found a link to a GitHub page, which would essentially have this exact same class in it called Dialogues. So what is this class Dialogues? Well, what it is a way to use J-option pane dialogues, like the message dialogue, the input dialogue, but to customize them, to make them a little more usable for not only this program, this tutorial, but any program you'd be using. So you could take this class and apply it to, say, some project you're working on, or even for those of you maybe moving on to post-secondary in computer science, maybe you could reuse this class or a version of it in something else that you've been working on, okay? Now, don't forget one thing here. I did forget to do this on the meme class. When you work on your meme, the name should be changed. The date should be changed. So we did this back in the tutorial. So don't forget that the name and date should be changed, because if I'm seeing my name and my dates when you hand in this tutorial, then I know you didn't do it, right? So this one was June 3rd. We started working on this one with tutorial guy. And this one is going to be on June 3rd. Okay. So that's it. That's it for the dialogues class. Now I'm just going to spend the last couple of minutes just scrolling through the dialogues class just to give you an idea of what it gives you. So it gives you the ability to maybe look at changing fonts and background colors and foreground colors and titles and things like that. So you could apply your own fonts and backgrounds and stuff like that. It does have some default ones that it just gets from, believe it or not, wherever J-option pane gets them from. So that's nice, okay? It's got a constructor to build a dialogues object. It's got a constructor that also sets the title. It's got one that sets the title and the parent component, which is something you could use it if you're using a graphical user interface. It's got the title and the parent component and the font and the fonts in the background. So lots of different ways you can construct dialogues. It allows you to set images in the dialogues, right? So a picture can be put in there to output the dialogues, to use an input dialogue, to input just an integer, to input just a double, to make a little yes/no dialog box, to make a dialog box that has custom buttons on it, to make one that has choices, to make one that you can play again. And then there's even ones for opening and saving files, okay? And then there's a couple other little methods. There's a lot to look through there. Remember, you don't have to worry about it. It's essentially done for you. So that gets us to this point in the tutorial, that we're now done dialogues. And now we're on to the third page of this tutorial. We will now be going to the images class and putting in its comments. So why don't we do that and then call it a day? So at least we have one more done. Let's open up images, which you can find in the tools package, images. This one's all done. All you need is the explanation comment. So I'm going to scroll down the PDF through all of this code for dialogues, which we just went through. Reading it is very helpful. It'll help sort of compare and help you learn it. Now here's the images code, and I'm going to grab its explanation comment. If you're having trouble copying and pasting off the PDF, here's a tip. Double click the word first, then select it. There's my timer running down. Then copy it, then paste it, and then format it. Okay, so if you're having trouble copying and pasting off the PDF, double click a word first, then try dragging to copy paste. Okay, that's my time. I'm going to turn off the recording today. Okay.